Welcome to today's podcast sohbet. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's topic from polytheism to pure monotheism. Many people think that the difference between polytheism and monotheism is that in polytheism you have poly, as the name says, many gods, and in monotheism you have only one. And beside this, more or less it's the same. But that's not true. If we look to the ancient times and compare how the behavior and relationship of the people was to their gods or God and compare it to us or to a monotheistic religion today, we see that we have complete different models of thought and different models of relationship to the divine. I will show you in some minutes. Well, before I continue, I just want to say that for me, there is, was, and will be always one divine. That's what we call in Islam Tawheed, or the kalima shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So, the testimony of faith. But how the image of the divine evolved over time and how we came to pure monotheism, I will explain you in this sohbet. And indeed, it took time. Humankind made an evolution, made a development, so did their understanding of religion and their image of the divine, which you can historically prove. That's why it's important for us Muslims to have also some understanding on that. From polytheism to monotheism, we can distinguish, let's say, three phases. And I'll start with the polytheistic world. Well, in the polytheistic world, as you maybe can remember from your school time or from TV, we had a lot of gods, and these gods were seen as also created. These gods were responsible for different areas of the world and were in charge of that. For the sea, let's say Poseidon; for land, knowledge, fertility, and so on. And people had no, let's take for example the time of the ancient Greeks, where we had Zeus, Aphrodite, Poseidon, and so on. These gods were imagined in that time, but people did not have any laws of nature or natural laws. At the same time, they needed to explain nature, the world, and to influence the world and their circumstances. So what do you do if you don't have natural laws and you're looking for a way to influence the world? Well, people thought we can influence those who are in charge of this world. So these gods. Now, how do you influence these gods? Well, you bring a sacrifice, you obey them, you perform some ritual acts, and you give them things you possess, kind of that, and try to get their favor. So, and of course, it was important not to make these gods angry, to use incense and to please them. Well, that is the polytheistic model you have in ancient Greece, in the Roman Empire. You can go back to even the Egyptians and so on. Even further back, you will find this polytheistic world. Now, over time, things change a little bit. People developed, of course, hopefully, and also their understanding of religion, the divine, developed. The need of a closer relationship with the divine came in, and people wished to have a better afterlife together with this divine. You can find this even in the time of the old Egyptians. You can find it in the Greece culture. So people didn't want just have a better material way of life and hope to influence the gods in this direction, but now they wished a relationship to these gods and to have with them a better hereafter. Especially in the Greece culture, you find this with the gods Serapis, Dionysos, the Mithras cult, and so on. You can find how these images of these gods evolved, where at the beginning it were more fertility gods. People were connected to the nature and to agriculture and needed the help of the gods to survive and to have some better results in this world. The need now was more on a more personal relationship with the gods, and especially in these development. You can see this. You can the historians and archaeological findings show evidence of this change which happened. You had a lot of gods there with which were first nature gods. It was this dying in the winter and the resurrection in springtime, and people felt this was the rhythm or the law of governance, let's say, of the universe. So when a time was passing, and now more and more it was one God who people felt connected to, and I even don't talk about Judaism, which came up with monotheism, or Christianity, who also promoted kind of monotheism. But even in this ancient called pagan and mythical cults, you have that some gods get more and more important and the others lose their importance. So this idea of one God evolves more and more over time. However, we have the problem that we don't still have enough knowledge about natural laws, and still we have to cope with this world and nature, and we still need ways to influence it. So despite we are now in a more monotheistic world, I call it a transitional monotheistic model or world, people now use the tasks they attributed to the polytheistic gods. Now, okay, it's this one god they pray to who should perform these things and who should respond to their wish list. So people again sacrificed, made some acts, ritual acts, obeyed and so on to influence this god. So I can get some better results here, and I can have a better hereafter in the underworld. And the other world was depicted plus minus like this world, just better. Well, now over time, progress in discovering new laws of nature, natural laws, came in, and now we had the problem that even we had monotheistic religions since 1,000 or 1,500 years, we still had these polytheistic models of thought. We expected from God what people at past times expected from their polytheistic gods. So now, since we had natural laws, since we could influence nature, we made new inventions. Now people thought, well, okay, now we don't need God and religion anymore. We can influence the world by ourselves. And at the same time, people thought, well, okay, what about the thing about the hereafter and having a better hereafter? Of course, people said, well, okay, that's also too materialistic. People depict the other world as just something like our world here. So is this really something true, or is this just psychological weakness? And people came with some, let's say, Freud, to take an example, as a famous psychologist in the Western history, who just said, yeah, well, that's a psychological deficiency, thinking of the other side as a world like this. People just need this because, it's unsure for them what happens later and so on. So we got now big problems with this evolvement of science. And beside this, we had also a second problem with this divine. Now, when this was time of many polytheistic gods, it was no problem to have sufferings in this world. But now, since we have one God, we still have suffering in this world. And people are asking themselves, what about justice? Is God unjust? Or is he not almighty? Well, if you have a war between two Christian groups and one is losing, you are asking yourself, hello, why is God not on my side? In the pagan world, it was not a problem. Yeah, well, maybe you had the wrong God, it was the weaker God, or one God was in your favor, but another one was not. So you had an explanation. But now, with this one God, with monotheism, but still having these polytheistic models of thought in your mind, we got some problems. That's why I call this model, or this phase of the human history, transitional monotheism. And now we come to the pure monotheism. Because now in pure monotheism, it's not about any earthly material things. And it's even not about having a better material or whatever other side hereafter. It's just about having a relationship with the divine. And this relationship satisfies you. And this relationship of the heart, and this deepening of this relationship, that's the important thing. To improve your conscience of this divine, your inner states of connection with this divine. And this world or the other world, they are just worlds of meeting with the divine, with a deepening of your relationship. That's the important thing for you. The Quran calls this the return to the divine. We can take this picture, returning to the divine. That's our task here, or our mission, and that will be our task and mission on the other side. That's the thing which qualifies real or pure monotheism. I hope you got some insights in. I will just recap a little bit. So we started with the polytheistic world and the models of thought that they had to influence their material world by the help of these gods. And then we came to the need of being connected to the God, to having a better hereafter, which we called the transitional model of monotheism. However, with its problems, as I explained. And then at the end, I explained what pure monotheism is, where only the relationship, your heart relationship with this divine, is the important and essential thing. So these historic differences you can find if you study a little bit the evolution and development of the religions. And it's not only historic. I mean, of course, you can find the historic phases, like for polytheism. Later it comes with Judaism, monotheistic religion, even in some regions before we find some monotheistic approaches. With Christianity, some form of monotheism comes, and then with Islam, even pure, I would say, form of monotheism comes. But it's not only historic. Of course, it is historic, but historically it also overlaps a little bit. But it is at the same time, between different people, you have either a more polytheistic model of thought, or you have a pure monotheistic model of thought or something in between. These models of relationship to the divine vary even between people in different times of the history of mankind and even today. So even at times of, let's say, polytheistic religions, let's take Hinduism, which is even today classified by some as a polytheistic religion. If you go deep into this religion, you have these polytheistic ideas, but you have also these pure monotheistic models of relationship where people say there is an initial source of every being and we want to connect with that and we want to be in relation with that, and all our action on this world has the aim to deepen our relationship with this only source of every existence. Well, that's what we call in Islam Allah, the only one divine. I hope I give you some now a little bit overview. We can deepen every part of this. It needs some deepening. Just hope to give you some insights about history of mankind and religion and the divine. Stay tuned. Listen to the next sohbet where I will investigate in some further question. Write me if you have some questions. Assalamu alaikum. Barakallahu fikum. Fi amanillah.